This podcast contains swear words.
Well, hello, fabulous ones. Welcome to Talking Shit with Tara Cheyenne, podcast about creativity, making shit up, living as well as possible in the process, even though it's hard, but it's worth it. It's so worth it. We are going to change the world. I am confident. I am coming from the perspective of a performing artist, but the issues, themes, ideas discussed here apply to all of us. Life is a creative act. And who am I? I'm Tara Cheyenne Friedenberg. I'm your host, and I am an actor, dancer, choreographer, writer, director, educator. I'm a parent. I sometimes like to crochet, but I never follow a pattern. I like to talk about protein. And I am living here on the west coast of Turtle Island on the stolen lands of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. And before we dive into this new interview with a new fabulous person, a reminder to please like, share, subscribe, heart, thumbs up, bell thing. I think that's a YouTube thing. This all helps us spread the word, help people find the podcast, which is interesting because this episode's interviewee found us this way. They were looking for femme, non-binary, feminist, theater, dance, art-making podcasts, and they found us, which makes me extremely happy. And also, if it is in your means and you're inspired to make a little donation or a big donation, big donations are fine, seriously, no problem. It really does make a difference. We are a very small, not-for-profit arts organization. So you can go to the donate button on our website, taracheyenne.com, upper right-hand corner. Click that donate, or we'll link you to the donate page in the show notes. And without further ado, my interview with Emma McGlashen, they/them, creative director of Murmuration Theater Company in Brooklyn, New York. They have been lucky enough to learn, work, and perform in a range of spaces, from the University of Michigan to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, New York Theatre Festival, the Tank New York City, under St. Mark's, etc., etc. We will link to their bio in the show notes. Emma is a young, enthusiastic, inspiring artist, and I'm really happy that they reached out and found us and wanted to have a conversation. I think it's really important to talk to young folks who are doing this art making shit in spite of all the odds, working day jobs, finding each other, making the world a better place, and helping the art environment be healthy. And this gives me a lot of hope, and I think you'll enjoy this great conversation with Emma. Emma McGlashen, welcome to Talking Shit with Tara Cheyenne. It's great to have you. It's so cool that you reached out to come on the show. It's very exciting. And that you are in the beginning of what I know will be a fabulous career as a theater artist. You're based in Brooklyn, yes?
Yes, I am.
And your theater company, you're the creative director of Murmuration Theater.
Yes.
Love the name.
Thank you.
It's promoting and uplifting emerging voices, femme, queer, trans. Am I correct?
Yeah, we are really interested in working with underrepresented communities, and especially folks who are just a little bit newer to the industry and maybe are feeling like intimidated by breaking into the industry TM, but just are really passionate about doing art and telling stories.
Love it. Because, of course, I'm in Canada and you're in the United States. You know, there's some differences which might be interesting for our listeners to get into. But last time when we did our little pre-interview, you talked a little bit about the magnitude of the idea of being a theater artist in New York. And just saying it, it's like, ugh. I can see how that might be really intimidating. So what's your experience with that as a young artist? And then how are you trying to like bridge the way into being a theater artist? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, totally. I think we talked a little bit about the mythos that surrounds it and how you're so close to Broadway and you are so, it feels like you're on the verge of something, and the whole energy around the city that never sleeps and the big lights and the giant buildings. And I remember the first time I came to New York City, and just on the train over the bridge, everything lit up. And in my brain, I was like, I'm gonna live there. That's what I'm gonna do. That's all I want to do. And it is so intimidating because you're sharing rehearsal spaces, for example, with shows that are on Broadway. You are so, close to such exceptional talent. It's really amazing and inspiring and motivating, but it's also intimidating because there are so many stories about it being who you know, and this idea of needing to network with these people and needing to always, have your best face on and your best foot forward and know all of the insider secrets and, and be charming. It's very, very high pressure and intensity all the time.
I can kind of imagine, but also, I mean, it is in theater and dance, there is that, like, you got to go schmooze, you got to do the thing, which I don't even like going out after 8 o'clock, frankly. Unless I'm performing. Then
I would love it.
Yeah, totally. Or my friends are performing. But I just think of the energy, right? Like the energy to be on. And so that's like one whole job, being on and, who do I need to schmooze with versus the energy to be an artist. And it sounds like that's part of your work is to focus on the art making.
Yeah, that's our hope. That's part of why we don't accept resumes or headshots. Because there's so much tied up in the idea of what you've done already and who taught you and just what your sort of polish is, instead of I'm in the room and I'm excited about it. I'm personable and I really am engaging with the material. One of the most flattering pieces of feedback that we've gotten, I think, is that people sort of filled out our little survey after the show was over, and they were saying it just was a comfortable space to work. Like the team was welcoming, and that is really valuable to me. And we also try to make sure that we are, posting our audition notices on Facebook groups and potentially on like paper in public places, stuff where it's like you don't need to have your eye on everything all the time. You don't need to be paying for all of these websites where these postings are. You can be a theater maker. You can be a creative person who also has to hold down a 9 to 5, because that's the other big part of living in New York City.
Right.
Is it's possible to pay for.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think we need to embrace the reality of being an artist. Unless you're come from money, yada, yada, you need to work. We need to work. And even, like where we are, where the funding situation is better, it's not awesome for a lot of folks. So, yeah, I love that you don't like no resumes, no headshots. It's so brilliant because like, what is the experience in the room as opposed to what's the decoration on the outside of your box, right?
And there are, formatting and dimensions and resolution of image specifications that are preferred for particular, official companies. And I don't know those. I don't really want to know those. I don't feel like that information is publicly available. And that's one of the things that frustrates me most about the New York City industry. And I don't know if this is common across dance as well, but just, I don't know if there's things you're supposed to be wearing when you come into an audition, or particular types of, warm-ups or sequences that different people know how to do and you're expected to jump into. There's no YouTube video that's like, hey, you're not prepped for that unless you know somebody who knows that already.
Exactly. And it's so exclusive, which is really counter, I think, my belief, to the work of art making, which is about connection, which is about changing the ills of our world, which, God, we got a lot of work to do. Although I did see a really nice little clip of a visual artist from the UK saying, enough already. let's put the pressure on the billionaires, please,
Mm,
and not on the artists, because we're, you know,
yes.
a little bit ludicrous. Here, we're going to pay you the least amount, but we'd like you to do the most. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So you're not from New York City. Where did you come from?
Yeah. I grew up kind of in Michigan and kind of in Boston. Where did I come from? Outside of Ann Arbor, in semi-rural Michigan for early elementary school, and then middle school and early high school outside of Boston in a little town called Belmont outside of Cambridge, Massachusetts, and then back to Ann Arbor for the end of high school and college, and then New York.
Okay. Right on. I toured with children's theater throughout the US for a chunk of my 20s. So I recognize all the places you just said. I'm like, oh yeah, I performed in elementary schools there.
That's awesome.
Like two like really different places. Do you feel like those experiences have helped you as, a theater person, then coming to New York and like kind of setting you up for like, okay, I know what it feels like to come to this place and wanna make it.
Yeah, I think so. I think absolutely. One of the things that I think was maybe the most impactful about Michigan was, so I have extended family all over Michigan State, and I feel like there is a a Midwestern sensibility and practicality. And my parents are both in STEM, and I have
Okay.
extended family in the trades. So I think there is a real sense of, what matters about that and why does storytelling impact me, I think there is, a warmth and a community, but not necessarily sort of the bandwidth for engagement with art in the way that I feel like a lot of us are doing it right now.
Right.
So that I think has contributed a lot to my sense of what is valuable for me in terms of what stories we're choosing. Just in the sense of, why should people go see plays? I think it is a wonderful thing for people who are already bought in to the idea of experiencing community and story and sort of beauty and enchantment to go see a play. I think there's a whole potential audience, which is taking it a step beyond that and saying, what does this have to do with your community? What does this have to do with now? All of that sort of pragmatic stuff. So I feel like, yeah, Michigan is really like the Rust Belt industrial brain is like, what does that have to do with the cost of potatoes? You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. I love that. And so is that something you feel like, because I know you did talk about doing some touring. Is that something that you're looking forward to or something that you would like to do in terms of like, okay, how can I bridge this? It's a question we all are asking ourselves. Like, yeah, I look out, I see all my friends, yay, when I do the show. But when I go to small town, yada, yada, how do I engage with those folks? How do I promote my show or talk about my show or, do the outreach so that folks know that they're invited, that their thoughts and conversation are of value?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a workshop I went to a couple of years ago that was incredibly inspiring for me. It was with Sojourn Theatre and I believe the Center for Civic Practice. Definitely check out the show notes for that. But they did a presentation of a piece that they did on working with communities to solve poverty in their area. And they had community buy-in, and by the end of the night, they had the audience engaged in a discussion about where that $1,000 went to their community. And it was a performance. I mean, there were, skits and scenes and data, and they would have presentations from relevant members of the community. And it just became this whole piece that was both engaging and, long-term impactful and stuff. So I was so jazzed. I went, 8 pages of notes and all of that stuff. So we last year did a piece called Fishtown from this emerging artist named Michael Quinn, brilliant guy, which is about the opioid epidemic, specifically in Kensington, Pennsylvania. And so we partnered with 2 New York City community organizations, The Bridge and Project Renewal, to run that workshop of that play as a Narcan training, test strip distribution, talk back with those two organizations so that people could get involved if they wanted to. They left with some reading materials, and everybody was handed, Narcan kits, test strips, stuff they could distribute to their communities as well. So that was incredibly meaningful for me. I have, personally known people who've died from overdoses. A lot of the people who we talked to about the show, who worked on the show, felt really personally connected to it. So that would be something I would love to take on the road. And just because, in Michigan, there's a huge Battle Creek, we're recently having a huge issue with, or pretty sure still having a real serious problem with that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the many, many ways that I would love to, take actual change and apply it. And yeah, I owe a lot of that to Michael Road and Sojourn Theatre.
That's brilliant. I mean, I live in a place, we have a absolutely heartbreaking problem with the opioid deaths, and it might be the worst in the world actually here. It's horrific and embarrassing for it shouldn't happen. So being able to see how theater, like what a beautiful thing to do a Narcan training that is also a theater experience. That's really inspiring. Like, that's so practical. Are there other things that you can think of, that kind of slip in, like ideas and other shows that, you know what I mean? Like, I love that sometimes we do things like, oh, yep, that's really practical, really Michigan. And then the things where it's like, oh, that slides in. And then you can see how people are thinking about it. And it's probably going to change the way they talk to their cousin who yada, yada.
Yeah, exactly. It's presenting information in a way that makes you leave and think about and ask other people and, ruminate. I love all that work.
I love it. So like young activist theater, is that fair to say about you?
I like to say so. I'm flattered by that description. I'll take it.
Yeah, run with it. You're clearly doing that stuff. I'm in grad school right now, so I'm thinking about this stuff. Like there's this, the practical, the like conversations. I mean, my last show is about gender and I call it the binarizer. Are we all destroyed by the binarizer? And just how that conversation of this incredible spectrum, we need to be talking about it and enjoying it and experiencing it. And so that really practical. And then in grad school, I got some professors who were like just get weird, like just art, like no reason, like that kind of thing. There's tons of theory and stuff. But for you as an artist, how are those two things working for you these days? They're really practical. Let's solve some problems. And also, we are artists. We're making magic and dreams and turning things upside down and beautiful, weird, etc.
Absolutely. And I totally agree. There has to be an enormous amount of space to play and to be a little bit more abstract and to work through that stuff. And I think that's where so much magic happens, is in that sort of, oh, I feel something from that and I don't know exactly why. That means something to me. That's its own form of community, right? Is somebody saying, I'm doing this because I feel something, I feel the need to do it. And someone watching that and saying, oh, I get that. I get you. And that in some ways is way more vulnerable and intense and community building than something more literal and more of an explicit conversation.
Totally right. And the two words that just stuck out for me when you were talking were the word play and the word questions, and how those two things really sit together so nicely. Like we play, we make these kind of almost puzzles in a way, and then the audience can go like, wow, I felt that. And then they can ask, why did I feel that? What was that? Which is really activating, right?
Yeah. And it's almost more generative for an audience when you say, here's something, and then, for them to come up with a range of ideas of what it could mean. Actually, I majored in poetry in college, and one of the things that I really loved to play with words was ambiguity and, the possibility of like 2 or 3 different interpretations, because that lets you, read the poem a couple of times, maybe see the dance a couple of times, like to go, okay, well, maybe it's this. And then with more context later, okay, let me go back and, reimagine and rejigger. And then you've looked at, the piece from 8 different directions and you understand more.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see all like the nuance and layering, and it's like, it's this, but it's also this.
Yeah.
And it's these things that contradict each other, but they're Ambiguity is such a great word. Ambiguity, and talking about glissant, which is a philosopher that we were reading, talking about opacity and the right to opacity. And so not needing to be transparent. And so ambiguity too, is there's those things. It's like, oh, we can reveal this, but not this. And so what are all those layers of meaning and what we reveal and what we choose to hide or keep for ourselves?
That's fascinating. I feel like that makes stuff sticky in some ways. You walk away and you're like, if everybody having a conversation about it afterwards thinks it's something else, that's more fun than it.
Totally right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a play about the eco crisis. Oh, yeah, we got it. Okay. Yeah. Bad.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I do love about what people say about my work, not everyone, is like, what was that? I'm like, that's great, because now you're going to try and figure it out.
Yeah.
You're going to try and figure out what it was. And like you say, it's sticky. I love that. What about like this young theater company? They've all got day jobs and they put out a call for new scripts. I think you said 920 that you had submitted.
Yeah, I think this round was 920 about, and I think a previous round of submissions, we got 1,300. It's a magnificent and totally overwhelming pile of scripts. And it's so fantastic and it's so flattering. And my teammate, Sal, I think put it best when he was like, I'm so grateful and flattered by how many people want to get involved.
Right.
Just interested in, doing it, partnering with us and making art. It's really cool.
That's so great. And it also speaks to there's a need. We need to tell stories and put them on stage. Okay, but how do you, who reads these? My partner and I were like, how does that happen? Wow.
Yeah, we all split up work. We read through a lot of stuff. We're trying to get more specific. I think as we read that many scripts, we come up with more of a sense of what we actually like to read and put on. We don't want to exclude anybody. We're really interested in, again, it being a truly open call on public websites, on Facebook groups, on our Instagram, whatever. But we also have started to realize that what we are most interested in is, contemporary language, casts of between 2 and 10 people. We're looking for, this range of pages. We're looking for shows that ask questions. We are particularly looking for shows that are not, fatphobic, homophobic, bigoted. And that, that eliminates more than you might think. And then
yeah. No asshole shows, please. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And then, yeah, just stuff that asks questions that speak to the world that we are living in now. And it's harder to do that as things change so rapidly. We're working on some pieces now that are directly in conversation with protests against billionaires and the election of Donald Trump specifically. I mean, they're very timely.
Yeah.
And they're intense, but they're also funny. It's a really hard thing to write a good play, and we've gotten so many of them. And we're trying to figure out ways to work with more of those playwrights, honestly. And it stinks, actually, that we have to cut it down to so few, but there are only, 5 of us running stuff, so.
Yeah, I mean, how many shows can you put on?
Yeah.
But what a beautiful thing. Here's a question that came to mind as you were talking about that. Being somebody who's read that many plays, at what page do you know this is a good play?
For me, it depends on the length of the full play.
Right.
So usually if I get halfway through or page 20 is about what I would say. Because halfway through, if you haven't really gotten to something meaty, it's likely that, it doesn't have the time to arc and fall. And then by 20 pages, it's usually the case where I can tell if I'm not in love with or hating any particular character, then I'm like, if I'm not feeling strongly emotionally about anybody.
Yeah.
Or again, if nothing has happened yet, then I tend to, okay, well, I'll put that one aside and maybe I'll finish reading it later.
Right.
And sort of process that when I have time.
Yeah.
But right when everybody's waiting to hear from me, I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah, you got to move along. I mean, those are like hot tips. My kid hates it when I say hot tips. Every time I say it, I'm like, It's like, you don't say that. 13-year-olds are wonderful. But like things that, as we create, whether it's narrative or not, or whether it's linear or not, I mean, I believe we're humans. We think, we move, we receive through story. You see two dancers on stage doing an abstract piece, there's going to be some relationship between them that you're going to place on them, right? So how do I feel about these characters or these beings? If I don't hate or love somebody, I love that. It's so true, right? It's like I feel meh about these people.
Yeah.
Speaking of, because I work kind of amongst theater and dance, there's always this, especially when I teach, going from like primarily theater practitioners to dance artists, the question of linear and narrative versus abstract and nonlinear. Is there something really clear in your experience about the plays that you like to produce and the ones that you receive, talking about those two things?
Yeah, I feel like I love to work with linear narratives because I really love this sort of puzzle box of tight parameters.
Mm.
Like you were saying, I mean, this is abstract in a different way, but you have two dancers on stage, and then how does that unfurl for you? I would imagine there's a certain amount of like the assumption of linear time from an audience perspective until you indicate that there's a significant shift.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, playing within that standard arc and then presenting a more perhaps conversationally abstract or ideologically abstract work, as opposed to something with more of like a dreamscape or a lot of flashbacks. I would say the caveat to that, though, is that we absolutely loved working on Stop Kiss by Diana Sun, which has both the before and after of a hate crime.
Mm.
And it flashes from, Sarah in the hospital recovering and back to when Sarah and Callie are meeting and starting their relationship. And it's this beautiful back and forth of them like learning to be brave and then learning to recover and trust each other again. So it's this really, really gorgeous narrative. So I am happy to play with time. But I do get teased about this from time to time. I don't like things which only present questions and don't give you any answers.
Mm.
That makes me so frustrated as somebody who's trying to engage with it.
Right.
And I feel like, I don't know if this is true, actually. I was going to say, I assume that the majority of audiences want to understand, that it's their, best intention to understand, and they're showing up and they want to be engaged and they want to feel like they're being met where they are a little bit, and they want to feel community with the performers. And I think there's a real negative stereotype about some art where it's like for artists.
Right.
I don't think that necessarily is the case, even for the more complicated abstract work. But I think at this sort of really early stage of my career and this really sort of baby phase of the company, I want to be clear about who we are and what we're saying.
Yeah, it's so important, right? To be like, this is where we're coming from. There's a lot of value in it's theater. People are coming to see theater. There's a certain kind of person who likes to see theater. But then from there, you can, open little doors to other kinds of maybe more experimental things or different kinds of questions. But we don't want to, some people do want to alienate their audiences.
Yeah.
There's a place for that. Absolutely. But it's interesting, hey,
Yeah.
I experience with very conceptual, experimental visual artists, folks, and their audiences are very specific and they want to see a certain kind of thing. And those folks are not necessarily the folks that want to see, like a time-based linear play. And, oh, that's the brother. And I remember, okay, oh my God, they were together the whole time, whatever. Solve a puzzle in a different way. But I think there's so much room for all of these things. And I think to be young and discovering for yourself, discovering what do I like? What is satisfying, what is speaking to the audiences that we're cultivating, instead of, imposing some New York idea on it, right?
Yeah. And I think that there also is a community that I would like to be supporting that I think is not, rather, they don't see themselves as theater goers. It's my hope, and this, of course, is very dependent on navigating a high wire of financial security and longevity, but it's my hope that we are able to keep our ticket prices manageable for, somebody who, I don't know about everybody else, but like I'm having trouble buying like meat at the grocery store. It's like, it's a tough time to be a person.
Right. Full stop. Yep.
Full stop. And I would really love it if people said, oh, yeah, I can, spend $10 on a ticket because, that's how much I'd spend going to a movie theater. Let's go. That's not necessarily feasible right now in New York. I'm seeing most stuff at, $25 minimum tickets, which is kind of scary in terms of a financial model. But yeah, I guess to me, it's like, I don't want to lose anybody, whether that's financially, narratively. Yeah, I don't want anyone to leave feeling like we weren't thinking about them when we made it.
Right. Right.
I don't know if it's possible, but everybody.
Yeah, I know. As you say that, I'm like, oh, it's like so beautiful and utopian.
Yeah, and impossible.
It is impossible, but sometimes we start with the impossible and then we see what we can actually do.
Yeah.
But if we come with that, let's try and make everybody feel welcome. What does that look like? Because, as you say, it's hard to be a person right now. And there's so many things that are saying to folks, you're not welcome. You don't have enough money, or you don't have the right identity, or et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to buy tickets for a couple great festivals happening here right now. And the ticket prices are just like, dude, seriously?
Yeah.
I'm getting frustrated because there's like prices for emerging folks. And I'm like, okay, how about the middle-aged folks who also don't have any money?
What about the people who love this stuff? And please. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a few articles, this is a while back, where I am talking about, okay, if we charged how much these tickets are really worth for all the work that goes in and all the people that need to get paid, whether they're in kind, working or not, you're looking at a $500 ticket. That's really what it's worth, right?
Yeah.
All the hours, all the education, all the experience.
Yeah.
But how essential.
Yeah.
So you've got auditions, you told me, and callbacks, like how many people, where do you do it? How do you figure it out?
Yeah. I actually am living in this apartment with another member of my team who is also my partner. And we have a little detached space. We found this apartment on Craigslist. So it's like way cheaper than it has any right to be. So it has a little detached space that we use for all of our auditions and callbacks and rehearsals. You have to scale up for any stage because it's small. It's,
Hey.
But I'll take it. It's hundreds of dollars in rehearsal space over the course of our seasons. So
Right.
So yeah, we're doing that then. And then we are finalizing our venue for our April Festival of New Works from Emerging Playwrights. And all of that is going to be performed by non-union actors without agency representation. We have some absolutely fabulous plays. We've picked 4 one-acts from our pool of over 900.
Way to go.
Thank you.
That could not have been easy.
We made a short list of 35 or so, and I'm still going to reach out to those 35 playwrights and say, hey, besties, can we please keep working together and send me everything you've ever written? I would love to hear about it. Yeah, and then we had our directors pick the ones that they were most passionate about so that they could have something they genuinely wanted to get behind. And we've ended up with a pretty radically political show, honestly, and I'm really stoked about it.
Oh, awesome. So that's in April. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes and link folks. So if there are people in the New York area or, Toronto, Montreal, that's a pretty decent little train trip. It's not that far, especially Montreal. But also, just for people to be aware too, I love that demystifying this idea of what it means or what you need to have, do, know, who you need to know to be a performer, to be an artist where you are. That in itself is like fantastically radical. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I was trying to put my thoughts together in a way that doesn't sound crazy before this podcast. There's like sort of three modes of community building for me right now, which are within the work. So like how you're building community with the work that you pick, and then picking work that asks questions and empowers and makes people think about stuff that's happening in your community. And then between artists, creating spaces for people to know each other and work together and potentially, share spreadsheets, share research, teach each other, try to centralize that information so we can talk and learn and be better all together. And then between creatives and our communities, taking this one step further and saying, what are we saying to you? What do you need from us? And how are we speaking with each other? And that's, there are so many potentials there. And I have no idea what to do to, solve the world TM, but I'm so excited about those things.
It's amazing. And it's important to recognize that there are a lot of people like yourself, like, no, let's fucking try and fix this instead of, doom and gloom and I'll just go crawl into a hole, which is also valid.
Yeah.
We're peeking out from the hole and going, okay, we're going to do some important stuff, but then I got to go back down. Speaking of which, is there something you're doing for yourself to feel healthy, to feel creative, that's really working for you these days? And it can be like anything, like, I don't know, like I'm cooking Boston clam chowder. Is it the red one or the white one?
White one.
The Boston is the white one. Thank you.
It's the correct one. And it's,
okay. It's the correct one.
It's delicious.
My brother-in-law is from Boston, so
excellent.
He will appreciate that. Yeah. So anything.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of things. One is I got a kitten, which is driving me insane, but it's also fabulous for my mental health. One thing is I've started doing a thing with friends and other folks I've been connected to through Murmuration, which is once a month we're watching either a movie version of a musical or one of those recordings of plays, just to like come together and be like, hey, we don't have to be making this all the time. We can just like sit back and we're gonna sing along to Rent and remember why, we all did this in high school and what we loved about it and chat shit and just like have a good time. And I'm learning to play hockey, which is helping me feel strong.
Oh, those two things are awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like going back to like, yay, we're theater kids.
Exactly, which I spent some years being like, I'm not like that. What do you mean musicals?
Musicals are great.
I agree.
Yeah. And I mean, I hate a lot of them.
Yes.
But the ones I love are like,
yeah.
And also the ones I hate, I'm like, yeah, but that's also amazing.
I can make fun of it.
Totally. And learning how to play hockey.
Thank you.
It's badass.
I finally have almost all of my padding, and I've been practicing my wrist shot and I have skates, and yeah, I'm a happy camper.
Oh, that's so good. I love it. I love it. I have talked about it on this podcast so much about femme and non-binary creatures doing strong stuff.
Totally.
It is gender affirming to feel and use your muscles.
Yes, to feel, strong and powerful and And I think I want to give a really quick shout out to the PWHL, which is only in its second year of being, but the Professional Women's Hockey League. I have been following the Boston Fleet rabidly. I made a PowerPoint. I love them all. And it's, like you said, it's so empowering to watch them, to just watch strong women be strong and be cool and be fast. And it's awesome.
It's so good. It's so good. It's like the antidote to like, constantly skinny, tinier.
Yes.
More perfect. The exact hair, exact blah, blah, blah. Meh.
Yeah. Get sweaty. Tackle each other. Even if you are not playing hockey, get sweaty. Tackle each other.
Yes. That's the quote of the day. Tackle each other, even if you're not playing the game.
Yes.
Is there something you would have liked me to ask you, but I didn't ask you?
I would love to talk a little bit about my team, if that's okay.
Yes, of course. Tell us about your team. Love it.
So we have a team of 5 fantastic people right now. Alicia is our literary and administrative associate. She is so brilliant and so hardworking. And she's also an intimacy choreographer and a dramaturg and loves working on new works with people. She's also a director. It's just, we have this team that wears so many hats and they're all so freaking smart. And I just admire the crap out of them so much. And then Emily Spence does all of our marketing and social media, and she's updating our website, and she's also a playwright, she's also a director, and she also acts. And then Colin Rankin is our music designer. He composes, he runs our audio tech, he's learning lights tech. He's a comedian, stand-up comedian in New York City, which is its own grueling month.
Oh, yeah. That's another order of business, hey?
And then Sal Rubio is also brilliant, is taking us into our incorporation phase, is doing a ton of research, has everything managed. He's our administrative producer and basically managing director. Super sweet, also a playwright. They're just such a smart team and I love them so much. And I'm really flattered that they are still putting up with my nonsense. That's all.
Oh, that's so great. And it's true. It's who we're in the room with, and we do support each other. We uplift each other. We do a million things. And it's important to recognize and to, load on the love.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. We'll link to all that information about your company. And if you're ever on the west coast of Canada,
I'd love to come see your work. Oh my God, I would die. I will.
On occasion, I come to Toronto or the East Coast, but it's been so fun talking to you. And I really look forward to watching all the great things that you're doing and are going to do. I just know it.
I'm thrilled and I'm looking forward to us keeping track of each other.
Awesome. And that is a wrap. Thank you, Emma, for the great conversation. I am very interested to see how things unfold. I can't wait to check back. And thank you for listening. Really, really means a lot to me, to the artists that I interview, that there's so many folks out there tuning in. And when I meet people in the world and they're like, oh, I've been listening, it's really inspiring, makes me feel connected. I got some great ideas. Or just that feeling of, oh yeah, we're all trying to make this work in our own unique and wacky ways. So thank you. And please get in touch. We are on Instagram, reluctantly. I just, if you have any suggestions, maybe Blue Sky, I don't know. What are we doing? What are we doing with the whole, social media hoo-ha? Tara Cheyenne TCP is the handle. Facebook, also, Tara Cheyenne Performance. You can find us there, or email. Just love an email. info@taracheyenne.com. You can go to our website. You can send us a message there too. Talking Shit with Tara Cheyenne is a project of Tara Cheyenne Performance, produced, edited with original music by Marc Stewart. And you can get in touch with Marc at email, marc@marcstewartmusic.com. And before I let you go, a little quotation that, I fear I may have shared before, but I like it a lot. From polymath and writer Johann Wolfgang von Goethe on dealing with critics. Against criticism, we can neither protect nor defend ourselves. We must act in spite of it, and gradually it resigns itself to this. Take that, criticism. Take that. I have the critic in my head. You probably do too. The critic in my head is Cheryl. And sometimes I just go, hey, Cheryl, I understand that you're just, you're trying to look out for me. But if you wouldn't mind, just take a coffee break, whatever. Just, I don't know, go do some online shopping and we'll let you know when we need you. All right, until next time, please keep making shit up. Keep taking care of each other. And we'll see you on the next episode.
This podcast is effing good.
Get sweaty, tackle each other. Even if you are not playing hockey, get sweaty, tackle each other.